sugar flowers. So, aside from that, Vera, your thoughts?
Thank you. Well, I'm approaching this from a cultural perspective because besides global communications and PR, we specialize in cultural awareness training in helping companies work with clients and colleagues from other cultures. And a lot of the things that you discussed are all about how technology has removed a lot of boundaries and barriers, and the one that it hasn't taken away, and in many cases magnifies, is the cultural boundary. We all have a communications preference based on where we come from, and even the discussion today and how we use technology was all about how we, as an American and Western society, use it, what we call our cultural lens, how we see everything. That's not necessarily how everyone else in the world sees it. I mean, you've traveled all over the world, you've done business in many countries, you know well that not everyone conducts a business meeting as we do. You know, we're very direct and straightforward, and we say we want to get right down to business, or it's not personal, it's just business. Other countries, you may have 3 meals and a meeting before you even get close to.
Can you imagine my first meeting at Sony in Japan going in as a 29-year-old? I broke 20 cultural barriers in one meeting. It's horrible.
So in those cases, that affects, we have trouble communicating in person now. When you take away the tangible physical connection, that magnifies many differences. For virtual teams, for even email communication, everyone responds differently, and so on. So it magnifies it. So even when we get to that blurred physical virtual world where that half of the table is virtual, we still today can't overcome that, and that technology won't necessarily make that any easier. So we have to go back and look at that. For many cultures, the nonverbal is so much more important than the verbal, and the building of relationships, which is hard over a virtual medium. Virtual teams have this problem all the time. It used to be you sat in a room and you worked with maybe 3 people from another culture and you still have difficulties. Now you don't even see those people. They're all, maybe you see them on Skype, but you communicate with them email, phone, and so on, and you can't get those nuances, the physical nuances. So how will technology affect overcoming that? And then the consumption of technology is different based on cultures. I was reading something the other day from Accenture about Indonesia in particular. They're the 4th most populous country in the world and huge consumers of technology. So social media is big for them because they're a collectivist society, and the group and what other people think are so important. But it also affects the other parts where here we use e-commerce, no problem, buy it, whatever, find it, buy it. We have showrooming. You go to the store, bricks and mortar are hurting because then you run back and buy it online. There it's different. They like to find out about things, but they still prefer to conduct their transaction in person. They're innately distrustful of e-commerce and virtual things unless they have that personal connection. So it'll be interesting to see whether culture changes how the technology is received or how the technology will change people's cultures and how those move forward from more of an anthropological standpoint.
And I have a slightly different view. I think that the cultural barriers are going to disappear over time. It's going to be generational. It's not going to happen right away. But this next generation that's growing up in a connected way, they're not going to hold on to those distinctions, or they at least won't be as abrupt. I think when we all got cast together online, there was a lot of problems, but I think that will go away over time. I think that's just a natural norm of more communication. I do think that remote communications, as I described it at Cisco, is going to help distributed teams work much better than they have been. But I do